MCQ 21 will be looking at the kidney dialysis machine. Now, the kidney dialysis machine is going to be critical for patients that have kidney failure, ultimately because the kidney has lost the function to undergo ultrafiltration as well as selective reabsorption in a way to cleanse the blood of toxins. So we're trying to mimic how a kidney will actually function. The critical portion here is that in the whole setup of a kidney dialysis machine, we cannot actually rely on active transport because there isn't any living cells that are actually found in the dialysis machine. So the only one that we'll be looking at is passive transport systems like osmosis that relies on a water potential gradient as well as a partially permeable membrane, as well as the reliance on diffusion that once again also depends on the presence of a concentration gradient. Now, urea is something that we would like to remove. So the blood in portion over here, as you can see, it will be the patient's blood that's actually high in the amount of urea. And by the time that the blood is returning back towards the patient, the urea must have already dropped to show that it has actually been removed into the dialysis fluid. So I should be expecting a lot of diffusion coming out from the vessels into the dialysis fluid. Now that must have then meant if I'm going to use the portion here as a start where there's a high amount of my urea, the dialysis fluid that's coming in comparatively should have the ability to generate its own concentration gradient of a much lower urea. So there lies your concentration gradient difference. So urea is actually acidic. So by the time we have again to acknowledge that diffusion is the main mode that urea is going to be removed, but we can only remove as much as the concentration gradient can actually support. So again, diffusion stops when concentration of urea at all region is the same. So two main areas here for consideration, which is the blood entrance in part C here, the urea will be pretty high, as well as in part B, the dialysis fluid that is actually going outwards. So we will then say that the dialysis fluid going outwards, although the urea concentration is going to be high, it's important again to see that at this region over here, we must be able to also generate a certain semblance of concentration gradient, or else we'll then say that concentration gradient only exists in the later part of the tubings, and that means that a lot of time is actually spent of the blood inside the dialysis machine without actually diffusing out. So the dialysis fluid going out, although again the concentration gradient is high, it is not as high as compared to that of the blood of the patient that is actually coming in. So the area that has the highest concentration of urea will actually be option C, which is still predominantly the blood that's coming in from the patient itself.